You're tuning into Black and White Sports on YouTube. The no-holds-barred truth on sports. The main event starts.
All right, Black and White Sports supporters, let's talk about the NFL and the World Cup. World Cup ratings have come in, and they're freaking big. They're real big for that USA-Bosnia game. The previous games have had big ratings, and there's rumblings and mumblings out there that, look, the next World Cup rights, along with the next NFL media rights, they may actually affect each other, because you're going to have a network potentially look at the World Cup and go, well, you know, if we don't get the NFL, if we don't bid as high on the NFL, we can go get the World Cup, and that's going to do real big ratings. And that's something we're going to talk about today. Right here, you see that headline, the NFL getting a little nervous about soccer's TV success, and it's big. It's real big. The World Cup audience for the U.S. men's national team just keeps getting bigger. Fox reported a preliminary figure of 24.4 million viewers for Wednesday night's match between the, I almost said game, but yeah, they're saying match between U.S. and Bosnia. Meanwhile, the Spanish language partner Telemundo announced an early figure of 9.1 million. That's a lot of, that's a big audience. That's a big audience. These numbers aren't the official figures. They do not include Nielsen's fairly recent big data methodology, which includes information from sources such as set-top boxes and smart TVs. The full rating is not expected until Monday, a spokesperson confirmed to Front Office Sports. Both networks have seen massive numbers for the U.S. matches, but Wednesday's primetime clash takes the cake. Fox said its audience peaked at 31.9 million viewers. These figures are setting records for soccer audiences, with Fox announcing the preliminary number as the most watched English-language soccer broadcast in U.S. history. Telemundo saying it's, quote, on track to become the biggest Spanish-language audience for a U.S. soccer match. So, let's go over here. Florio put this out. As the TV ratings for the World Cup surge, it's fair to ask whether the NFL is getting a little nervous about soccer's sudden success in the U.S. He points out something, and it's a good catch by him. ESPN putting out the numbers and still giving a passive-aggressive shot at soccer and using the NFL. You may be like, well, why would ESPN do that? The NFL owns ESPN now. Remember that? They own a big piece of ESPN now. The 2026 World Cup is delivering. The games are exciting. The penalty kick shootout provides a level of sustained and mounting tension that no other sport can match. Still, soccer has a long way to go. Wednesday night's audience for the U.S. win was 33.5 million. So that's the final number. Falls far short of the biggest audiences the NFL has delivered. 33.5 million for anything that doesn't have an NFL logo on it is gargantuan. That's big. That's real big. I don't know if there'll be maybe the national championship game in college football. There won't be over 2 or 3 college games that I don't know if any of them will hit 33.5 million. Still, ESPN, which is now partially owned by the NFL, felt compelled to point out in its article about the high water mark for soccer on domestic television. Quote, by comparison, the most watched Super Bowl of all time in 2025, when an average of 127.7 million viewers watched the Eagles and the Chiefs across Fox, Fox Deportes, Telemundo, and Tubi. ESPN wrote an article without a byline. So the ESPN made a point hey, we only want to talk about, we want to make sure you understand the NFL is still the big dog. The ESPN article mentions only the English language audience on Fox, 24.4 million. It didn't include the 9.1 million on Telemundo. Wow. ESPN is taking L's this week. Is it really apples to apples? The 33.5 million figure came 5 levels below the World Cup's equivalent of the Super Bowl. The NFL's 2026 wild card round, 3 levels below the Super Bowl, averaged 32 million. Okay, but we're talking about a rating that actually outdrew an NFL wild card. I mean, that's a huge rating. Obviously, the World Cup final won't produce an audience compared to the Super Bowl, even if USA team gets that far. Fox is targeting 50 million viewers. That's not the point. The point is, as the NFL tries to encroach on soccer's turf elsewhere, soccer is becoming more and more popular in the NFL's backyard and in 11 of the NFL's stadiums. It's fair to bring it up. And again, there is some concern there about cross-pollination with paying out World Cup rights or NFL rights, right? Correct? Right? Correct? That's a lot for a network to shell out. You know, the World Cup's not cheap, but everybody hates the hydration breaks, but they've paid for like 70% of the entire cost to get the World Cup and to show it across these networks. So that worked out. Even though people have bitched, look at the ratings. By the way, the ratings for the previous games, they were big too. Let's see. I've got them right here. The game against Paraguay that drew 25 million. The game against Australia drew 24 million. And the game, my screen jumped. The game against Turkey drew 24 million. So those are really, really big numbers. When Wednesday's final numbers come in, Fox on its own will eclipse the NBA Finals viewership on ABC. So they just blew past the NBA like they were standing still. That's interesting. That is. Now, there's always a lot of interest in the World Cup. All right, we've seen it the last couple of times. I think this is another level. Even I can admit that. And I'm not a big soccer guy, but everybody I know has tuned into this at some point to one of these games, if not all 3 U.S. games. You know, so now whether or not they can get interest in the other actual, what you would consider to be Major League Soccer leagues, I don't know. You know, that's the thing. I think the point is, would a TV network say, you know what, we're not going to pay you that, NFL. We'll just go get the World Cup rights. I mean, there's word that the NFL was agitated over how much money UFC got from Paramount. And we know for a fact they were furious over how much money the NBA got for their television rights deal. Tell them, and you might be like, well, nobody walks away from the NFL. YouTube did. When YouTube found out they were not getting the Australia game between the Rams and the Niners, YouTube had like 5 games on the table. And they said, once they didn't get it, they walked away. They were like, we don't want any of it. If we can't have that game, we don't want any of it. So, yeah, believe it or not, somebody can actually tell the NFL no. Peace. I'm out. Till next time.
Thanks for watching the show. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Be sure to tune in next time on Black and White Sports.